And hello, everyone. Welcome to our Research for the Public Good conference. We're very pleased today to have Dr. Brett Winkelhake presenting this morning, and I will turn the floor over to him. And welcome again to everyone here. Please go ahead and type your questions in or come off mute as we go through the presentation for Brett.
Well, welcome everybody. I do appreciate everybody being here today. This presentation is based on a dissertation that I did at the University of Phoenix for my doctorate of management with a specialization in organizational leadership. My dissertation title was called Verbal Argumentativeness, a Study of Retail Store Managers. I had always found it extremely interesting regarding communication styles when I was working in retail, when I was in high school and college. And I found that several of the retail store managers that I had worked for were great managers, but they were very less effective with communicating, which made them less effective as a manager. So that's why I always had that nuance for myself to be able to do a study like this. And actually I had that chance when I was going through my doctoral program, and this is what this presentation is about. So again, welcome everybody. Thank you for showing up today as part of this conference. My name is Dr. Brett Winkelhake. Jennifer, thank you so much for introducing me there. I do appreciate that. Kelsey, thank you for getting me into the Zoom session a little bit early. Well, again, welcome everybody. I know I keep saying this. My name is Dr. Brett Winkelhake. I haven't done this presentation for just a little while. I am a full-time faculty member at the College of Southern Nevada, which is a community college here in the Las Vegas area. And I am also a part-time instructor with American Public University in their management program as well. And absolutely love working for these different schools and being able to share what I've been able to find with my dissertation and the research that I've been able to do during this process. This research was done right around 7 years ago, and I have need to update it I'm going to be doing a study within the next couple of years to follow up with more studies regarding the retail store manager and the communication. So to dive into this, verbal argumentativeness is, let me get past this. So here's our agenda for the day, but to kind of give you a quick information on why I was doing this. As I had mentioned, when I was working in the retail field in high school and college, I found that the managers that I worked with in the retail sector, which I worked at Big Five Sporting Goods, Vons, Subway, all these different areas that can be considered retail. What we consider retail, people think of TJ Maxx or different apparel companies that come about, but actually retail encompasses the overall areas of grocery, apparel, gas, anything that you can think of that kind of gives you that quick hit when you go into the store to be able to buy something, and not a long-term, just maybe like a home purchase or anything like that. So verbal argumentativeness is a concept that was created by these two gentlemen out of Ohio from Kent State University and another university in the Ohio area for the purpose of having a very narrow area of communication. So verbal argumentativeness focuses on one topic at a time. So instead of kind of bouncing around in different conversations, you'll see managers and employees focusing on one thing. So they're being evaluated. That would be the verbal argumentativeness concept that they're working on in the construct of that particular meeting. So when I was going through this, that was something that I was looking for my own experience when I was working in the retail field, to have better communication from these retail store managers. When I have presented this in other conferences, I get questions from individuals saying, well, what's the purpose and what's the avenue of this particular study? And I said, more so to be able to help people understand different communication styles, different communication types, and how to communicate better from that standpoint. So in this particular study, what I did is I took what Infante and Rancer had done. So his gentleman's name is Professor Dominic Infante and Professor Rancer from those two schools in Ohio. They had based this concept for instructors and students in the classroom. So what I was trying to do was to make a comparison of what their study had done with instructors and students, as the instructor would be the manager and then the students would be the employees, and then making that connection from one industry of higher education to the retail industry, and how you can cross connect the communication styles and different aptitudes for people to be able to go in and communicate better with themselves and their students and their employees and their managers from that standpoint. So the potential benefits for verbal argumentives in the retail industry be that if you've ever worked in the retail industry, things happen very quickly. They're fast, they move, they're instantaneous a lot of times, especially with the social media age that we now have. Even, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, when there wasn't the same technology era that we have today, it was still very important for managers to be able to communicate with their employees within the retail field for making sure that the customers had what they need and making sure that the employees had what they need and that the managers could do their jobs during the process. I will also get into the data collection and how this can actually help the business acumen for these different retail store managers to be able to jump into a better communication style with their employees. And as it says on the bottom there, this is a definition from Infante and Rancer in 1982 that described what verbal argumentativeness is and how it can actually be helpful for these different managers from my perspective, but more for the instructors. That's based what this definition is based off of. So it says verbal argumentativeness is a trait that predisposes people to advocate positions on controversial issues while attacking verbally the positions that other people take on the issues. So it's basically if you were sitting in a debate style format where people are given a pro and a con typically on a topic, this is what you will be doing in the meeting. When you're a manager and employee, again, you focus on that one issue. So again, it's like a debate. You focus on that one issue, you argue the pros and the cons, and then have a discussion about which side might be right, which side might be wrong, or maybe both sides are right. And then you can kind of come to a compromise for creating a better communication style. But not only that, but you also create an atmosphere of trust and a partnership that you're creating with that student and or employee based on the study that I have done for this particular presentation. Infante and Rancer, when I dived into the history of how long and what they had been doing for this particular study, this study was actually created in the late 1970s, but wasn't put into publication until 1982, as you saw in that last reference. So what Infante and Rancer had been doing is over a matter of about 25 to 30 years, they had done several studies around the Ohio area, and then they went about to do it nationally as well to understand better this verbal argumentativeness study and the different areas and different topics. So if we're focusing on, let's say, an area of algebra, that's one area of verbal argumentativeness. You're just focusing in on that one specific area. Then you get into other areas. So what they did is they studied English professors, business professors, math professors, all these different people within the higher education institution on how they communicate better, because you can't just focus on one specific area. They were just trying to get a general area and then maybe dive in to see which area needs the most improvement in communication in itself. So as you can see the bullet points right here, they're trying to learn better effective communication strategies. My study was based on a quantitative analysis, a chi-squared quantitative analysis, where I took their questions that they had. It was 20 questions overall. And what I did is I worked with a statistician at National University who had helped me understand that doing a chi-squared analysis was probably the easiest way to go, because we must have gone through 40 to 45 different statistical analysis to see which one would work better. And if you've gone through your dissertation or you're about to, you'll understand what I am talking about with that process, trying to figure out the best method and avenue to get going with that statistical process. So we went through the 20 questions, and we were able to simplify questions 1 and 2 as an answer of yes, and then the last 3 questions as an answer of no, to make it easier on the statistical analysis for the chi-squared process in itself. And now these last 2 bullet points, this could help executives with communication problems, because I was trying to focus more solely on the retail store managers, but what I came to find is that even the communication with the retail store managers is not necessarily good with their district managers or their regional managers, or even the executives at the top. And I came to find that when I went in to talk to store managers at Walmart, Target, a couple of different big box areas, they actually could not give me any information, because I didn't realize there were policies in place at these institutions that kind of disallow them from talking about and possibly giving a negative light to the organization itself. So I had to kind of find a different avenue. And this might not be the best avenue, but it was approved by the school at the University of Phoenix. I had gone, again, Target, Walmart, different gas stations. I was trying to find the national brands and not necessarily the mom and pop shops because I thought I would get more information. But what I found was I did not get the information that I was looking for because of their policies that were in place during that process. So I had to go out and talk to different like gas station attendants and individuals at these different areas for local purposes. But even that, they really didn't give a lot of information. So I didn't have a lot to go off of. So I had to talk to my dissertation mentor to go through that process. And he said, okay, well, let's try this. And I said, okay, that's great because it's a great idea. So this, again, the avenue might not sound the best, but I ended up going on Craigslist and posting an ad and actually got 26 responses back from retail store managers, was able to use 20 of them in my statistical analysis. The other 6, they didn't answer the questions fully, so I had to actually remove them from the study itself. So kind of give you the background on what this process looked like and what it took for that process in itself. So I go through these areas where clear communication is expected. There's a collaborative effort among not only the manager, but also the employee to make sure that their communication style is actually heard and the employees are heard and the managers are heard and that they can work collaboratively together in a team atmosphere and that employees understand their job functions. That's another part of what the study was about in one of the questions, and then creating a positive communication relationship with the employees and the managers themselves through that process. I did a measurement of the retail's perception because it's sometimes the retail store managers, one of them was actually very, very new when they gave me their information. They had just become a retail store manager. So they didn't have a lot of experience with this communication style, which most people don't, but they didn't have a lot of experience with communication in general as being a manager because this is their first avenue of being a manager. So in one of the questions, they were one of the 20 that I was able to use. You can, their answers were kind of all over the map compared to the other ones. Verbal argumentativeness is a trait when communicating. It is. When you're in a process of verbal argumentativeness, you're not attacking the other person, you're attacking the concept. And I mention that because in one of the studies that Infante and Ranser did, they found that people were actually attacking the identity of the other person and not the topic. So I tried to focus on the topic that was being presented, the one topic in a clear communication style, to make sure that that's what they're focusing on, not attacking the other person based on race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, anything like that. Just focusing on, hey, this is the topic we're going to be discussing, and this is the way that we need to actually move forward with this particular area. So the purpose of the study, again, was Infante and Ranser in 82 really started their publication of this concept, and I wanted to use their communication style for myself, being in the retail field several years ago and understanding why retail managers don't communicate the way they do, communicate the way they do, and how to better help them communicate in a better fashion. I've never been a retail store manager, but as an employee, I found it very difficult for retail store managers to get across what they were trying to get across and be able to, from an academic standpoint, help them understand what a better avenue would be for communication purposes. So with verbal argumentativeness, I came to find, and just talking to different individuals, not only my dissertation committee, but also the different retail store managers and emailing back and forth with them, they actually found the questions kind of not riveting, but a better understanding for themselves to create a positive outcome and a positive atmosphere. And not only are they looking for people to have a better relationship with, but they want to have loyalty. And I'm not talking the loyalty of like a king or a queen or anything like that, but people that are loyal to the organization and loyal to them, but try to get them to understand, hey, you can come to me and communicate to me about anything. That's a loyalty that I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to come to me and know that I have an open door policy for you to come to me and not have any predispositions on what you're going to be talking about. Because from my perspective, I explain to individuals from this study itself that if I have a manager and I trust the manager, I'm going to be able to tell them and say, hey, this is going on in my life right now, and this might actually hinder me from doing what I am trying to do with my job in a very specific manner. And if I can do that, then I will actually feel more comfortable when I come into work for the retail store managers. And what I came to find in these studies, it's not just retail store managers that might have a better communication style, but if they take that avenue of understanding of their employees, then the communication and trust and the collaborative nature actually works out better, not just based on this communication style, but several different communication styles. But that's why I wanted to focus on this one specifically, because it does focus on the topic and the two people or the two or more people involved in the process of the communication. So in the test the survey that I had administered, we had 20 null hypotheses that were tested, and it was based on the verbal argumentative scale that was created by Infante and Rancer in 1982. But when I had actually communicated with Dr. Dominic Infante, he had told me that they had started this process back in the late 70s, and again, didn't get it published until 1982. And he said, it is a public document. You can use our scale. It's not like it's for profit. We're here to educate people in the higher academic world in itself. Based on the study, 9 of the null hypotheses were rejected, so 11 were accepted. So a very even keel of the 20 null hypotheses that were used during the process. So I did find out a lot, but I also had a lot more questions that I needed to answer. And that's what, again, if you've ever gone through your dissertation or you're about to, or you're going through your doctoral program, you'll understand that if you have an even keel, you're going to have more questions than what were answered from the survey in itself. In this particular survey, in this particular document, my dissertation, we used a chi-squared univariate analysis. And I only got 26 responses. We're able to use 20 of them. And one of the areas that I found that I could probably have done better at is getting a larger sample size, because the larger sample size, the more information that you get and the more information that will actually come about, and the better that people will be educated based on the topic that you're doing. So in summary, the background was for myself, working in the retail field. I had wanted to understand why retail store managers communicate the way they do, how to better help them get into communicating better. And the purpose of this was exactly what I'm saying right now, is to understand communication better within the retail store field, and then possibly expand that out into other areas in different industries. And the significance of this for me personally was to understand how people do communicate better and how I can communicate better, not only with my employees that I've looked at in the past, but also students from that aspect as well. And the results we just shared with the 9 null hypotheses being rejected and the 11 being accepted. Are there any questions that I can answer for you at this time? Very riveting stuff.
Oliver had a question in the chat, which was, does it make sense essentially to try to get to people who don't want to answer those questions, or maybe another way of spinning it from my perspective? Yeah, he's asking what's the minimal sample size, like not being able to get into the big box stores. Given technology these days, are there ways you could maybe increase that sample size without going directly into the store and asking to speak to somebody?
There's ways. The Craigslist, I don't think, was the best avenue when I look back on it now, but at the time that was kind of one of the only avenues that I had. The problem becomes, it's when you go in and they tell you and they give you literally their employee handbook, and it says a policy in there that they cannot talk about specific things that would negatively affect the store, the brand, or the organization. It's very hard to do that. And that's why I went into those other places, such as the gas stations, or like in San Diego, where I was doing the study. There's little stores called like H&M. They have several of them around the county, but they're not national. They're just in the San Diego County area. So trying to find those, I think, would have been a better avenue for myself, and or maybe focusing on one specific maybe industry within the retail section right there probably would have helped from that study purpose itself. Great question, by the way.
And yet Oliver put in another comment about how this might look different, or what with the pandemic, post-pandemic environment. Do you think that's changed how managers and employees communicate?
Oh yeah, I can tell you, working in higher education and working for American Public and the school that I work for here in Las Vegas, that we were, before the pandemic, we were right around 50-50 of people on campus and online. But then when the pandemic hit, we, within about a 2-week period, had to shut down, and it almost went from 50-50 to 90-10. And those 10% were nursing students, HVAC students, different students. So if we were able to do a study today, these results would look, in my mind, would look completely different. Also, if we added a different statistical analysis in there, I think the results would look a lot different as well. But since there's thousands of statistical models, trying to find the best one is really hard to do. But the results would look very, very much different if I was to do the study today. Yeah, great questions, Oliver. Appreciate it, man.
I have a question for you. As you're going through, and obviously this is a communications slant to it, but when I think about argumentativeness, I think about social media as well. So do you see any application for kind of the outcome of this study? I know it was focused on retail, and social media is a different beast, right? But do you see any application there that you'd want to elaborate on?
Yes, there could be. The problem with social media is the social media is kind of like the third player in all that. So if, let's say, you and I are talking, Kelsey, that's really what I wanted to focus on, not necessarily like Instagram or Yelp or Pinterest or any of those other social media aspects. If we were going to use it like we are using Zoom right now, I would say yes, that could be an avenue. But when you start getting other areas involved, that's one thing. But then I also have to think, okay, Craigslist can be considered a social media area because it's a free application for people to put on weird stuff. I'm not saying my study was weird, but you can put on calls on there, you can put on massages on there. I mean, it's just a weird thing. So yes, I would say that if I was to do this study, I could probably get a lot more answers with the area of social media that we have now today. Even though this was only 7 years ago, there's so many more avenues of social media. So I mean, I could probably go on TikTok, I could go on Instagram, I could go on Facebook. I could literally just post a video and be like, hey, can anybody answer these 20 questions as truthfully as you possibly can, and use the studies from that, and it would be completely acceptable. And I've heard of people in their doctoral programs doing that. So good question.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry if I put anybody asleep with my presentation. Any other questions I might be able to answer for anybody?
Not exactly a question, but along that same vein, it might be interesting to look at consumer behavior and argumentativeness. Yeah. Because, just in terms of all the things we've seen with, civility and interactions between people, especially with post-pandemic society as it is, and all of the other factors at play. So it'd just be interesting that would be a different direction, but I could see it being a very interesting study.
Well, one of the recommendations that I made in my dissertation was taking the study and kind of doing a 180 and doing a survey of employees, not retail store managers. So understanding the consumers, so like internal employees or internal customers, understanding those people, those individuals, I think would be a great avenue. And that's one of the recommendations that I made in my paper. I just haven't done it.
Yeah,
this is good stuff.
Brett, it's a really good study. It'd be interesting to see, for example, go to Walmart and go to, say, 50 Walmart managers all around the country. What's going on? Because it's one unique store. You could go to Target, go to 50 Target stores or 50 in one brand and see what's happening. That'd be interesting to see how they're the biggest companies around, like Walmart. Be interesting to see what their managers are saying. This would be a good research grant. Go for it. Ask for $20,000. Okay, then go to Texas and California and Florida.
There you go.
Interview
I don't
people.
like that responsibility, Oliver.
Yeah, stay in a good motel, 5-star.
There you go. I agree. That's one of the things that I have thought about and that I've talked to when I was doing my defense on my presentation that was one of the questions that literally you just asked for is, what would happen what do you think would happen if you went to a big box store? And I said, well, I don't know, honestly, because I can't get into any of them. And one of them said, well, they have somebody who works at one of the bigger retail stores, and that might be the only way to do it is if you're internal and knowing that it's only going to possibly be negative to maybe the 5 to 10 people that would be dealing with the process internally.
Let me give you a hint. Our university here has an access to Walmart distribution centers. When Karen Powell was here, we had access to 50 Walmart distribution centers. And I was lucky to be one of the few people. We would go and actually sit in the Walmart distribution center all around. I went to 50 with her and some others, and to sell them our courses. They take our courses. We give them a discount rate, I think. But it was interesting to find things like they don't advertise jobs to the public. They do not advertise jobs to the public in the distribution centers. They're internal, and they look for people, but how they manage the people in those warehouses was totally different. So there's another research avenue, and the avenue is openable. It's openable because we do have a good connection with Walmart. Just a hint. Get some more money.
I agree. If I ever decided to jump back into this, I will definitely do that. So thank you for that. Matt, I see your question in there. Would you find corporate policy as a hindrance in any future research in this area? Yes, I do, because I've already found the hindrance. Going to these big box stores and knowing that they already have a corporate policy on this, I could see places like Arco, Chevron, Exxon at their gas stations in different areas having very similar policies like this. But knowing that their franchises, like I've gone into a McDonald's, and the gentleman even there said, even though we're a franchise, we still have to abide by the employee manual and the policy for the corporate side, so we can't talk to you about this stuff. And I said, well, what about off the record? And then I kept thinking to myself, well, off the record, I'm not a reporter, and this is going to be on the record for my dissertation. And it's not like it, as Kelsey and I were talking about, a lot of people, most of the plan to never read what our research is, but knowing that I can present it in this fashion, I think would be very beneficial. And if I could talk to somebody in those corporate areas and change their policies, I think it would be very beneficial. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not seeing any other questions right now. Of course, folks can follow up with you, but yes, thank you so much for being here, Brett, and really enjoyed hearing about the study, and I hope that you can find an avenue to continue it, especially with the nuances of 2022 and where we're headed.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, everyone. Hope to see you later.
Appreciate everybody. Thank you.